The Gold Mamba returns to Climate Pledge Arena, but believe it or not, the storyline from this game against the Las Vegas Aces didn't have much to do with the Gold Mamba or even her former teammate from Notre Dame. We'll talk about that and how the Seattle Storm are faring.
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. That's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners that'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
All right. Seattle Storm fans, Seattle basketball fans, welcome to another episode of Tempestagi Talk, where we keep a local eye on the Seattle Storm. It's part of Black Rosie Media. My name is Nneka Ayala. I am your founder of Black Rosie Media, also known as the head Black Rosie in charge. And I am also a contributor to CBS Sports. That's my main gig, where I contribute mostly in women's basketball, a little bit of hockey. I'll be doing some softball coverage in the coming days. So an exciting time overall. Absolutely a great team win. Eagles brother 92. We see Moni in the house. Donovan saying the Storm did their thing this game. We're going to talk about all of that. And eventually, Roberta Rodrigues, who's my co-host for Tempestagi Talk, she will join us as well from Climate Pledge Arena. But yes, this was a great win. The Seattle Storm definitely did their thing. And there's some stats that we're going to go over. We are going to talk about the Skylar Diggins interview in Vanity Fair with some thoughts about that. And we'll talk about some of the things going on in the WNBA, women's basketball overall. But like I said, my name is Nneka Ayala, one of your co-hosts here, and I like to do a vibe check. I'm kind of doing a vibe check by myself at the moment, but we'll do a vibe check again with Roberta. But let me know in the chat what's good in your neighborhood. What are you feeling good about? What are you feeling good about when it comes to women's basketball? Let me know so we can do this interactive style. But for me, I was at that game, New York Liberty at Indiana Fever. It was a great milestone for me as a contributor to CBS Sports. We're starting to get more opportunities to bring, especially the digital team, out to games, and that was one of them. It was on CBS Network overall. And it was fantastic to bring a little bit of extra coverage, especially for those who keep up with the CBS Sports app or read cbssports.com. I had an article up on cbssports.com about Dewana Bonner. We might talk about that in our halftime. But yeah, I loved going to that game. I loved being able to do some new things. And again, we'll talk about some things happening in the WNBA as we move forward. Wheeler must be trying to get sixth woman of the year with this performance. Listen, that it was a fantastic performance. Wheeler actually led the Seattle Storm in points, spoke to the crowd after the game, and talked about nobody really is talking about Seattle. And I was like, okay, she means none of y'all, like those people out there, because obviously we talk about the Seattle Storm on this podcast. And, you know, as a contributor to CBS Sports, I believe I have them finishing either four or five. But a performance like this is definitely what you need to see more of when it comes to the Seattle Storm. Striatic, hey, what's going on? We got some Seattle Kraken stuff coming up too. But what a great game. Don't normally watch the WNBA, but Seattle beating Vegas brought joy to my heart, especially when the Storm hit 100. Exactly. Yeah, they were on pace at one point to get 115, which is wild. We saw some rest for the starters, but as Moni says here, we needed every minute of positive contribution from the bench. Great win. This was a building block win for so many different reasons. If you were listening to the broadcast, you heard Elise and Dick talk so much about that in recent years, in the past couple of years, this has been a one-sided, air quotes, rivalry that Seattle hasn't been able to score with even in the 70s, let alone get 100 points on this Vegas Aces squad. And you can talk a lot of things about the Vegas Aces. No more Kelsey Plum, Candace Parker retired. Megan Gustafson, who's been a reserve player for them in I guess last season, injured. You can talk about a lot of different things, but I mean, overall, this is still an Aces squad with Asia Wilson and Nneka Ogwumike and Ezi Magmagor, who we heard from after the game. Both Ezi specifically giving credit to Nneka early on her defensive efforts against Asia Wilson. It took her a while to get her first field goal. It was a great matchup between Nneka and Asia, and then Ezi coming in as well. But it was fantastic. Exactly. Here we go. I thought I was dreaming knowing we kept Asia under 20 points. I believe she had, let me double check my notes, 15. Yeah, and that was the most. That's another thing. Not only do you keep Asia Wilson at 15 points, but she still is the leading scorer for this Vegas Aces squad. Moni saying, I'm sorry, Erica. I love seeing Seattle fly under the radar. Erica Wheeler. That makes more sense. See, and she spells her name the same way. So I was like, yeah, not me, Erica Wheeler, Erica. That makes sense. I will see with a performance like this, it's about consistency. So many great things that we love in this game. Again, we're going to hear from Roberta Rodrigues after she does a local hit. We have to see this more consistently. And of course, we're going to talk about Dominique Malunga and things like that. Striatic saying, I like when Noel mentioned at halftime maintaining their Asia that was a great term. And for the most part, they were able to do that. We're going to talk about Dominique Malunga, so we'll get back to this, but I just wanted to pop Donovan's comment up on the screen. Was most impressed with Dom's ability to score in small spurts. And honestly, we've seen that. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but down the stretch, have someone that can give you a quick 6 points in a couple of minutes. And not only that, but and for those who are in our Slack channel, I was like, no way, Kitley gets into this game. Liz Kitley for the Vegas Aces got into the game before Malunga. Well, that was short-lived. Malunga came in, and then Kitley got a really quick 6 for the Aces. I mean, she won't be talked about very much, and not even on this podcast because we are a podcast for Seattle Storm fans, but you have to give credit to Kitley using the most of her minutes in a game where, the Aces, they were down by as many as 22, 24, 27. Holy cannoli. All right. I didn't realize it was even that much. At the time, I think it was more around 24. And she gave them a quick 6. That's exactly why I've been saying that Dominique Malunga can give this team more minutes than she's been getting. And you want to see her do what she did today and even what we saw Kitley do for Vegas. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. I'm just getting us ready. I'm doing all the checks here. One of the things that we have to talk about, which actually wasn't a storyline, but it's our thumbnail, so we're going to talk about it. But a little anticlimactic. Juwel Lloyd coming back to Seattle. What did y'all feel about that? Let me know. Yeah, it was 27. Thanks, Donovan. And yes, proud to see Kitley, what she'll do, especially after that injury. Right, drafted last year. And I thought it was really cool that the Aces kept her around. And maybe proving me wrong a little bit, not really, but they need help with the front court. Can Kitley be that? Maybe, from what we saw, maybe. Anyway, happy Sunday. Good to see you. Thanks for jumping on, Daniel. But let me know, anticlimactic, Juwel Lloyd coming back. I will say I didn't see the first part of the broadcast where, they had any of the fanfare. So when Roberta Rodrigues jumps on, we'll ask what that felt like in the crowd. I mean, it looked for a minute there like Juwel Lloyd was going to have a revenge game. The first 9 points for Vegas and even more, but I know for sure the first 9 points for Vegas all scored by Juwel Lloyd. And there was a time where Juwel Lloyd individually had as many points as the Seattle Storm team. Now that was early in the game, didn't last, but I was like, okay, here we go. Storylines are going to do the thing, right? Revenge game. What were the feels? Juwel Lloyd ended the game with 14 points, so tied with Jackie Young for second most behind Asia Wilson's 15. So still a good performance from Juwel Lloyd. You see she's wearing a mask. I like the matte black because we've seen Sue Bird wear the mask, and Bird's Eye View is Sue Bird's new podcast. Independent. She's the only host, because she has a touch more with Megan Rapinoe. I really like this podcast so far. And it's not just because the first two guests have been from New York and then, formerly Seattle, but just a great format. Sue is such an intellectual basketball mind. She's also pretty straightforward, and she has a way of kind of speaking and communicating, at least on a microphone, where she's pretty inviting and welcoming. I think she's just got this really calm presence, and she's so respected. So highly recommend listening to that podcast if you didn't already. Yeah, no shade to Jewel. Efficiency has been on a big decline since 2021. That's something that we've talked about. It's something that we've talked about because Jewel was on the team the last 2 seasons. Tempestagi talk has only been around for, this is our second season, but we talked about Juwel Lloyd and didn't have a great performance against New York in the opener, the season opener on the road for Vegas. That's also where she broke her nose, though. And again, that whole reason I brought up Bird's Eye View is because they talked a little bit about that. But yeah, interesting. I only saw one person go up to Jewel after the game, and that was Ezzy. And so there was something shared in our Slack channel. It was from Callie. Callie, I'm blanking on her last name right now, but she's the beat reporter for the Vegas Aces and did an interview with Juwel Lloyd. And I thought one of the telling comments in there was like, it'll be great to, say hey to the fans, say hey to a couple of former teammates. Just said a couple. So I guess Ezzy was one of those. I mean, Ezzy is a sweetheart. I've met Ezzy and talked to Ezzy a few times and has always been very sweet. So I can't imagine that she's very different from that. When she's with her teammates, probably even sweeter, right? So not surprised that Ezzy was one of them. But yeah. And okay. And Jordy, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, not shocked. Either one. Ezzy and Jordan are probably only ones still cool with her. But after the drama, she burnt a lot of bridges in Seattle. And here's the thing, because we're going to talk about another interview, because Skylar Diggins also gave an interview with Vanity Fair. We're going to dig into that a little bit more, but we still really don't have a clear sense of what happened in Vegas. It was alluded to. Also, Sue Bird, I think, is the closest I've ever seen someone come to asking Juwel Lloyd about Notre Dame and she said it very plainly, how Muffet McGraw reacted after that. Sue was talking about immediately after that, but we've also seen Muffet McGraw act out since Juwel Lloyd left Notre Dame, if we're being honest, with some omissions, to say the least. But yeah, I think how things went down, and I will say that to me publicly, Juwel Lloyd did what she was supposed to do, which was to, just wait for things to get figured out. Now, to the extent where her team and by extension, her family were saying things outside of that. You know, they were being defensive, right, of a family member. They had a certain perspective, but it was a lot of cryptic. It was a lot of kind of guessing. The Seattle Storm didn't offer much except to handle the investigation, of course. And, no wrongdoing, we move on. There's a lot of questions that we still have, that I still have at least, with regard to what went down. I don't know that we have a quote unquote right to know. And, things move forward, things go on. But again, we'll talk about the Sky interview. There were a few things that she said there that I don't think are specific to Seattle, if we're being honest, and we'll get into that. But yeah, we thought we all knew about the ND drama. Yeah, well, sure, but Neil Ivy did not repair the relationship between Jewel and Muffet, which was what I was referring to. Um, Even after all that drama, they were nice enough to still send her to a team like Vegas. And that's something that in the interview with Sue Bird, Jewel seemed surprised, that it was Vegas at the end of the day. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. I was talking about Muffet McGraw specifically. And I mentioned Notre Dame because, well, that's where Jewel went. But no, Muffet and Jewel, seems like there's beef there. Or maybe it's one-sided, I don't know. But yeah. Now, that's interesting that this quote from, or this comment from Donovan, because a little bit tangentially, and it's something that we'll talk about tomorrow on Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, also a Black Rosie Media original podcast. But I like this. After all the drama, nice enough to still send her to a team like Vegas. That's interesting because Connecticut sent Tosh Cloud to New York. And given that they had another guard that also wanted to leave, I don't know. If that was the move. But anyway, I'm a little tongue in cheek there. But again, we can talk about that on our other podcast. Other things I want to talk about before we move on and we get ready to have Roberta join us, where we'll really break down this game and a little bit of Phoenix. We have to talk about Nneka Ogwumike. Nneka Ogwumike, now 9th all-time in steals, past the one and only Katie Douglas. So is climbing the ranks in all-time greats. Not surprising. She also is 9th overall on the all-time scoring list. We heard about the all-time scoring list this season already, with DeWanna Bonner going into 3rd all-time. But this one was special for Nneka because she got to 9th overall by passing her former teammate, Candace Parker. After the game, Nneka, of course, was asked about this. Skylar Diggins has been really pumping Nneka's accomplishments and saying she's breaking a record, every other time, franchise record, passing an all-time great on the scoring list. What Nneka said after the game, paraphrasing here, of course, is that it's very heartwarming to hear that a part of her history and moving on is by passing someone that has been a part of getting her to where she is. And that is, of course, her former teammate, and seems like she's still friendly with Candace Parker. And, Nneka is always so humble, so grateful, so gracious, I should say. And I just love that there's I was going to say resurgence, though I'm not sure that's quite correct. I think that her numbers, and we've talked about this on the podcast, her numbers in Seattle, they've been different, and that's expected. And the role that she played for Seattle last year, critically important. And I think we're seeing early on out of the gate that already she's feeling confident. She's feeling more self-assured. She understands her role. And that's a question that I asked her just a few games ago with regard to how she felt even just 2 games into this season compared to 2 games into last season, still getting acclimated. And, I think she really was able to reflect and talk about what she was proud of from her perspective, but the team perspective as well. So, yeah, exactly, Donovan. Such a full circle moment for Nneka Ogwumike. You could tell that it meant something to her. She did say, you don't go into playing, whether it's at the start of your career or, when throughout, really having a grasp of or thinking too much of, oh, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? So when those things happen and you have a moment to reflect and celebrate, it's always a good time. And having a moment to honor, reflect, and celebrate, not just publicly, but I would imagine also personally, her time working with and playing with Candace Parker. That, I mean, she's an all time great. I will be honest. I wouldn't say I was a hater. Some might say I'm a hater. I just didn't always understand Candace Parker's game within the context of the WNBA. And I do want to say that I've said this before on a few different podcasts, but there was a dark period of the WNBA. And it just so happens that Candace Parker came in around that time. Now, what do I mean by dark period? By that I mean it just the drop off was significant when it came to how much as an NBA property, okay? Because let's not fool ourselves. The WNBA is a subsidiary, is an equity, is an offshoot, a vertical, whatever word you want to use. The WNBA is not a standalone league. It is part of the NBA ecosystem, and that NBA ecosystem was very quiet on the part of the WNBA, whether it's between, the first ever commissioner is Kathy Engelbert. Everyone else was a president or something. So the structure was changing around that time. There seemed to be a lapse and a lull in marketing, promotion. There was just a lot going on. And so, yes, thank you, Moni. Hit us with history because I remember, the dark days of the WNBA. If I had to guess, right around, so in '06, that was still Detroit, right? That was one of the Detroit championships. Really started in '07, but was like we were deep in the dark days in '08, which is wild because that's the year Candace Parker won Rookie of the Year and MVP, and people already tapped out. But you know, anyway, I could go. I love walking down memory lane. I don't know if some of y'all might not know that song. Who's that? Stephanie Mills. Walk down memory lane. Good song. Great song. Anyway, Tulip, what's going on? What time is it for you? We always appreciate you tapping in. Seattle cooked them aces. They're finding out Jewel ain't Plum Dog. Ooh, burn. Listen, Plum Dog is on the rundown. Plum Dog is on the rundown for today, for sure. What was it? Plum Dog with 20. I don't know why I'm like trying to remember it because I literally typed it. Plum Dog with 20. Oh, I didn't write it down. She has 124 points in her first 5 games for the Sparks. That passes Christy Tolliver. Ooh, that's a throwback name. Dang. As a Liberty fan, I don't like talking about Christy Tolliver. The corner shot, automatic. Nasty work. Anyway, 114 or 15 in her first 5 with the Sparks, if I remember. It was like 20 something points for Plum Dog. But love what Kelsey Plum is doing for the Sparks. And speaking of Juwel Lloyd, Plum Dog, Aces, Sparks, my next trip. Well, I'll actually be in Vegas tomorrow on a personal. I'm going to see Janet Jackson. Birthday gift. Me and my homegirl are going. But then I do my softball assignment, and then I come back to Vegas to see Plum Dog with her revenge game. Which one's going to be better? Let me know in the chat. We talked a little bit about Juwel Lloyd, dropped 14 points, tied for second most points in this game for Vegas. Asia Wilson had 15, so she was the highest scorer on the Vegas Aces. Came out the gate really hot, slowed down. I mean, so did Vegas, right? So there you go. Who will have a better quote-unquote revenge game? Plum Dog, haven't seen it yet. It's coming up. Or will Juwel Lloyd's 14-point performance outshine what Plum Dog can do against Vegas? I mean, The way Vegas is playing, Plum Dog might get a 50 piece. Listen, the way Vegas is playing. Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm reacting. This is a strong reaction because you're absolutely right. Now, I will say there's a little more than just the super duper dark days going on here. It's also that, and Cheryl Reeve has talked about this. I agree with her. Y'all, like, and when I say y'all, not like literally y'all, but like the collective we, because I'm in media and I have to eat this. We didn't appreciate Maya Moore. We still don't appreciate Maya Moore, in my opinion. People were real quiet when they realized that she was stepping away to talk about, the justice system, air quotes, justice system. And people got super duper duper quiet when Maya Moore, who kept her business to herself, it started being at the time rumored and then reported that she was in a relationship with Jonathan Irons, who is her husband and the father of her child. Thank you very much. So we will put respect on their relationship. But I was like, this is wild to me because of all of the things a human could do to lose the respect, the support of an entire community, taking a leave of absence from basketball to try and support a wrongfully convicted man doesn't top my list. Okay? And I'm not saying we should quote unquote cancel people. That's a very complicated, I have feelings. I have strong feelings because canceling also in some ways is a form of erasure. It's like anyway, like I said, I have deep thoughts on this. But my point is, like, Maya Moore was not respected as a player. She was doing things on the court no one else was doing. She anchored that every odd year run for the Minnesota Lynx to make them one of, 3 franchises, right? To win 4 titles, never consecutive other than Houston Comets. But you have Seattle, the Lynx, and of course the Houston Comets, who have 4 titles. The lack of respect for Maya Moore is just, I can't. I can't. So I wanted to put this up here because I have strong feelings. And like the collective, we could have done better. But you know what? Maya did what she needed to do. And I say this all the time. Maya don't owe us nothing. We can miss her, sure. But like don't get so in your feels that you say, "Oh, I'm mad she's not playing." Like it's not us. It's not a us thing. She made a choice and we didn't respect her. We didn't honor her enough, in my opinion, when she was here. So let her do her thing. She seems happy. She's coming back around now. Because at first she was like, bump all y'all. I'm gonna be with my boo and do what I gotta do. You know what I'm saying? And respect. But now she's coming back around, I love this. All right, let me catch up on the chat. What up? Woohoo! Seattle beats Las Vegas. I'm so happy. This game erased the first game from my memory. Listen, and that's funny that you say that because that's almost exactly what Gabby Williams said after the game. She's like, that wasn't after this game. That was after the Phoenix game, I believe, because I was watching that availability. She's like, I'm not talking about that first game. They also had a great game against Phoenix. This was a great bounce back for Seattle. A great bounce back. I know we miss Maya. We all miss Maya. Hey, Molly, we miss. Didn't appreciate her, Donovan. You see what I'm saying? Didn't appreciate her. Exquisite. Thank you. Immediate. Yes. Tamika Catchings is another one we don't put enough respect on. Those 2 queens, I will take. Those are 2 spots immediately I'm taking. I don't even know. They might. I don't I can't remember exactly what position, quote unquote, Tamika Catchings played because, these days it doesn't really matter. Even if they played the same, I don't care. They're on my team. They're on my squad. You know why? Because they play both sides of the ball. You know who else is probably coming on that squad? Tosh Cloud, Nneka Ogwumike, Strong. I'm going to have everyone in the same position, and I don't even care because I prioritize really solid defense. And that's what we've been seeing from the Seattle Storm squad. Missing in a big way last year. But the communication, the discipline, the instincts, and again, we're going to have Roberta Rodrigues join us. I know she loves some of the athleticism that we're able to see from Gabby Williams in how she jumps, how she reacts, how she reads. That is the type of game I love. I have been high on Gabby Williams' game for years. We had a great conversation. This is back when the Liberty were still playing in Westchester County, y'all. Oh my gosh. But we had a great conversation, Gabby and I. I guess she was still with Chicago at that point. Fantastic basketball mind, so athletic, got to keep up with her, talked to her a lot in Paris. So, I mean, just great. It was a great game. That's why I said that the first game was such a fluke, because when does 3 players combine for 2 of 19? Listen, 19 is such an interesting number, especially for when I do my other podcast, Got to Get Up, because people love reminding me 1 in 19 for Sabrina Ionescu. But we have Roberta almost ready to go. So that means we've talked a little bit about Juwel Lloyd's return. I do want to hear from Roberta about, I know I think it was you, Donovan, right? Who you shared a little bit of what you saw and who went up to Jewell and who did not. One list is longer than the other from what we've seen in the chat, but I want Roberta to react to that. And then we're really going to break down the X's and O's of today's game for Seattle, a little bit about what we learned in Phoenix. And then there's a big test, y'all. There's a big test coming up in Minnesota. I mean, I'll just say this now. I'm glad that we saw the version of Seattle that we have seen in the last 2 games ahead of Minnesota. But again, we'll break all of that down. But Roberta is almost ready, and then we'll bring her in. Yes, Minnesota on Tuesday, big test. I love this, Donovan. Seattle's biggest pluses this season will be defense and efficiency. We got hella efficiency from Nneka Ogwumike, but that's her bread and butter. Nneka looked like, what was it, 2016 MVP, right? 2016 MVP Nneka. That's what we were getting glimpses of that. And it was a beautiful thing to behold. And that's the vision, right? Erica Wheeler, fantastic game. So we're going to get all of that, but I think Roberta is almost ready. Climate Pledge Arena, my stomping ground for hockey. And we've got a nice little view of CPA with Roberta Rodrigues. Hey.
Hi, everyone. Got into some technical issues here, but we're here at Climate Pledge Arena. You can see it where it happened, right there on that end is where Erica Wheeler hit that 3-pointer that pushed the Storm to 100 points. You can see my technical issues here. But yeah, it was a great game, great energy all around here. I mean, it was a game with a lot of stories around it, and I think the Storm really did do the best out of it, and it couldn't have had a better ending for the Storm.
Great game, building off of what we saw in Phoenix, 3 wins in a row. I mean, these are all great things. But first, as I mentioned, we're going to get into the X's and O's of this game very quickly here. We talked about this a little bit, Roberta, but since you are, as to use a term, you have a bird's eye view of what's happening here in Seattle. I wanted to get your thoughts, your reactions to Juwel Lloyd returning to Climate Pledge Arena.
That was definitely something. I was someone who was pushing for a 30-piece from Juwel Lloyd. And in that first quarter, that is what it looked like that was going to happen. So I was cocky and I was like, I told y'all. And then she didn't score the rest of the game. Yeah. So that is not, for those of us who have been watching Juwel Lloyd for years, that's not uncommon. That's not something that is really unexpected.
Right.
So it was a typical Juwel Lloyd game. I gotta say that I did expect a warmer welcome from
Mm.
the arena to her. People were cordial, people clapped, but it wasn't nearly the same as when Stewie came back and when other players come back. I mean, when Jade Melvin came back, there was a sign that someone, because I posted the the tribute video that the Storm
Yeah.
made for her, and said, you know, it was a warm welcome, and Juwel Lloyd was a little emotional, happy, and then someone responded saying, "Hey, but counterpoint."
Oh, can't see that. It's gonna be a little tough. You might have to
It
read it.
says, if you purchased a Jewel loyalty shirt in 2024, you could be entitled to financial compensation.
Oh man.
Hashtag Team Noe.
Wow. Wow. I mean, and it's something I was talking about Bird's Eye View, the podcast with Sue Bird, because Juwel Lloyd was a guest, and Sue really leaned into it. Like, your jersey number will be in the rafters. Like, you're a legend, a Seattle legend. Jewel talked about that she grew up, she learned how to be an adult effectively in Seattle. And so to hear that it was a little bit lukewarm at best, it sounds like, I mean, will time heal that? I don't know. But we were talking earlier that there's just still so much unknown, but clearly some perceived bad blood between whatever went down.
Yeah, and the thing is that it was a dramatic exit, right? It wasn't smooth. It wasn't cordial. There was definitely, Juwel Lloyd and her camp were pushing for a narrative, especially against head coach Noelle Quinn and her
Yeah.
coaching staff. But the thing is that Noelle Quinn has had. Her demeanor has been widely known in the league, and people know how she behaves. So it was, people weren't really buying it, and the organization didn't buy it. And the way that, Juwel Lloyd and her camp were really gunning for, like, almost like a mistreatment or devaluation of her. It could have gone a different way, but she chose to go the other way around. And I feel like fans really picked up on that. And
Yeah.
with and that, the fact that she hadn't really been effective,
Right.
that she hasn't really
Mhm.
helped the team like win, it people were kind of, yeah, I would say people were not hostile, people were not mean or anything, but I felt that there was some hurt in there. And of course, like we were all paying attention to the half court greetings, right, when the game was
Yeah.
about to start. So
Yeah.
you just saw like, Skylar and Nneka just did like a very safe distance tap, and then you did see a hug from Ezzy, Alicia Clark, and oh my God, who was the other starter that I forgot? I suddenly forgot about it. And there was like a kind of like a weird hug and everything, but you could see that there was some. You could see that there was a kind of like, some sort of vibe, not the best vibe there.
Mm.
So yeah, there are things, that you can clearly see by their Gabby, yes, Gabby also gave her like a little side hug. Anyways,
And
I was
Donovan had mentioned Jordan earlier, who obviously we know isn't playing, but I guess was still there to greet Jewel.
yeah. So I there was like, and yeah, you could definitely tell the fans are kind of holding her accountable for the way the things went.
Yeah,
Uh,
Donovan saying that, it seems like people are split between supporting Noe Sky and Nneka, um, versus Jewel, because that's kind of, without any information, that's how it seems, that you have to pick a side. I don't think that we here, and Tulip says hi, and it's 2
Hi,
a.m.
Tulip.
2 a.m. for Tulip. Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning.
Terrible
Here I go again. Oh my God.
our terrible accents. Yeah. But I think it's understandable to be confused. I think we have tried really hard on this podcast. I think we've been effective too in not taking sides. And we're going to talk about Skylar in a little bit. Like, we know Skylar's demeanor, her personality, and we also know what gets put on her. And just because someone attaches you to something doesn't make every part of it true. And I think the same can be for Jewel. What I was saying earlier, I honestly do think publicly that Jewel handled this with as much grace as you can expect from someone who does feel, because I posted Callie's article. Callie is a beat reporter for the Las Vegas Aces. And, she's still talking about how it's mostly by omission, but she's alluding to that she didn't feel that emotionally, mentally. I don't get the sense that it's necessarily physically, but I mean, those are all kind of related. She didn't feel protected and safe at times.
Yeah.
She didn't feel that her voice was valued. And she talked a lot about leadership, and that it shouldn't be one leader, it should be 12 leaders. And that's definitely a philosophy. 12 leaders sounds crazy to me, but I have a very specific leadership style. I feel like I've made it pretty clear I skew towards the Skylar of it all, right? If we're talking leadership, sometimes you have to have a dog barking, literally barking sometimes, to get everyone in line. I definitely believe in that. And there is value in having people, if that's not their alpha voice, quote unquote, to make sure that there are ways to have people feel valued. That's important too. So, there's so many, really, top of the morning is Aussie?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's an Aussie thing, not a UK thing. Top of the morning? Tell us, Tulip. We're here to learn. We're here to learn. Anyway. But I don't want to stick on this because we have a lot to get to, and I have an early flight to Vegas tomorrow. So we're going to get through this here. But I want to talk specifically about this game. I talked already about Nneka and getting on the all-time lists, but I want to go into your thoughts on Erica Wheeler's 21-point performance, and then some of what we saw from the team that made them effective. Third most assists in franchise history, 24 fast break points, 52 points in the paint, and 21 points on 13 aces turnovers. I mean, that's just a snapshot, Roberta, of what we saw. How would you describe what made this a successful game, a successful win, such a dominant win for this Storm team?
Yeah, I think that's the word, dominant. It wasn't just a win. It was a dominant win. They started the game with 34 points in the first quarter. They held the Aces to 36 points in the first half, which was the lowest that they have allowed to an opponent. They also shot 68% in the first half. That is extremely impressive. And of course, that's not something that's really sustainable. But that's why we had you think about lineups and everything. But what I saw was a team that finally found itself and found each other. They knew where each other was in both ends of the court. So offense, defense, things were working. We saw that the ball was moving on the offense and the ball was stopping on the defense. We saw Erica Wheeler with 2 steals and Gabby Williams with 2 steals. So they were working together and working as a team, and that really got things going for them, which I think the Aces still doesn't have it on their end as they are adjusting to a new lineup with an all-star player in Juwel Lloyd.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this was such a cohesive Seattle Storm squad.
Mm-hmm.
And the Aces looked not really lost. They looked almost disinterested. Like they never showed up.
No, they didn't. They never showed up. And you saw, we know that A'ja Wilson is probably the most dominant player in the world today. But we saw Nneka Ogwumike completely dominating her, taking charge of the paint and being able to shoot over A'ja almost all the time. It took A'ja some time to get the blocks going. She did get 3 blocks in eventually, but she shot 5 of 17 and she got only 5 rebounds because you saw the Storm's paint really dominating it. You saw Nneka, you saw Ezzy. They were taking care of the inside really well, and they were able to play around the amazing player that is A'ja Wilson. And of course, we didn't see anything from Kia Stokes. Like she, that there was nothing there basically. So
I mean, yeah. Listen, I hate talking bad about Kia Stokes because I think she's a wonderful human being. I have covered her for a number of years, including as a beat reporter for the Liberty. And I say the same thing because it's true. If you look at her numbers, it's wild to me that someone with that size, that's such a great rebounder, is so lopsided in defensive rebounds versus offensive rebounds. That's number one. The second thing is, Kia Stokes is now in a league where positionless basketball is meaning that, I've said this before, you've got players like Jonquel Jones. I don't know, Brittany Griner, right?
Yeah.
Bree Jones. These are players who are consummate post players, and they're shooting from the perimeter. Maybe not all the way out to 3. I think among those 3, the one who's shooting most is Jones, right? Gabby Williams, such a utility style player. Stokes hasn't found that in her game yet, and it's showing up as an offensive liability for the Vegas Aces.
I mean, today we saw Malonga hitting a 3. I think they downgraded it to 2. So we're seeing all of the bigs adding that to their arsenal, to what they have to offer. And we did see Kia Stokes trying to shoot for the 3 today, and it just didn't go. She ended up with 0 points, and with her height and with what she's supposed to offer the Aces, she didn't bring it today. What she had to bring to the table was not there.
Yeah. Hey, Aloysius, good to see you. Donovan saying, this is wild. They made the unanimous MVP A'ja Wilson look regular this game. They made her work for everything. I mean, it was not a great performance from the Aces. A'ja Wilson had the best performance of a not so great performance. I mean, 15 points when your team is still struggling, when you're struggling and the Storm are playing so well. I mean, saying it made her look regular. Ooh, I mean,
she's the reason why it wasn't even worse for them.
Right. That's a little tough. It definitely was a slower game for her. Regular. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I don't love it either. Yes, Aloysius, homecoming ruined. We just talked a little bit about that. Long story short, it was a mixed bag of emotions that really just led to polite claps, like golf claps.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of a full on hug, if you will. I didn't hear the Aces post game, and now I wish we would have divided and conquered, because I knew you were going to be in Seattle. But either way, I would love to hear. We'll have to report on the next episode. It probably won't make sense anymore, but in our Slack channel, we will definitely talk about what Becky Hammond had to say after this game, because I just can't imagine that she didn't have a connection.
She's probably pissed. We know that.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So you mentioned how the storm ruined her homecoming. I did have a question. It was like, is it going to be a sweet or a sour homecoming for Juwel Lloyd? And at the start of the game, it did seem like she was going to show like, hey, look what you missed.
Right.
But then it died down. Like she didn't hit anything else. She started hot and then went full on cold. And again, for those of us who have been watching Juwel Lloyd for a really long time, that unfortunately has been the case.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move on to some other things. I actually want to let's step back from the Seattle Storm for a little bit. We're going to go into our halftime. I talked a little bit about New York. I just want to hear from you, Roberta. I was at this game, but and let me know in the chat as well. So a very tight game comes down to Natasha Cloud getting a steal. But some of the headlines, and I'm gonna let y'all know, I'm putting my heart out there. I'm getting tired of these headlines attributing everything with the New York Liberty, and when they win against certain, golden children or golden teams, as controversial.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Controversial about
It
how
was basketball. No, there was nothing controversial. And, it's a narrative that people want to keep pushing that, if that team loses and if that specific player is not a savior of the game, then something worked against them because it's impossible that, she wouldn't do something good. But the truth is that all that happened was basketball. Even that Lexi Hall play on Sabrina Ionescu, I know you said you thought it was a no foul. I think it was a foul just because there was some movement there. But the tip from Natasha Cloud, that was so clean. That was such beautiful defense work. She went like right at the ball, and the flop. I talked to my friends. I call her the female Neymar because that flop was so bad that it was like Neymar style flop.
For those who maybe don't know,
Neymar is a soccer player who was supposed to be the best in the world. But he's flaky. I'm not saying that that's Caitlin Clark's. That's not what I'm saying. But it's a thing now in the sports world that when an athlete is floppy or exaggerates, I always say that they're like Neymar. Yeah. So
Neymar literally rolls around. Like there's to the point where they're like people make this video of him just rolling because it was like a little insane.
And that was a major Neymar flop that she did. It was so exaggerated because she was a whole like it reminded me of the Dejounte Carrington thing that was like
yeah. I mean, she's trying to get a call there. That wasn't even the most egregious thing that happened. Here's what I will say. Someone mentioned Cloud9 was straight up rip at the end. It was a rip at the end. I do think that Stephanie White, I think, went a little overboard. She was very Vanessa Nygaard. There will be an all-star game, but there will be a game, but it's not an all-star game because Diana Taurasi. I don't know if y'all remember that. That was the most ridiculous thing that I've heard. And we're gonna get to that because we're gonna talk about Skylar Diggins in a minute. But I think Stephanie White oversold her complaint. That play was not a foul. Now, if she was talking about there was a Stewie block, Natasha Cloud had a block on DeWanna Bonner, I still don't think either one of those were fouls. But what I do know is that there was one of the three-pointers that Caitlin Clark hit. I think it was still the third quarter that she hit. And the reason that Indiana even got possession is because they blew an out-of-bounds play. They blew an out-of-bounds play. The officiating in that game was so wild because they were giving so many ticky-tack fouls, like, hand touch fouls at the perimeter at the top of the key. They blew the whistle so much early on, and then all of a sudden they backed off, which was wild to see because I'm like, 20 minutes ago that was a foul and now it's not. I don't know what's worse. Is it worse to have a tight game early and then it's loose later? Is it worse to be loose loose at the beginning of the game and then tight at the end. What I'm saying is there was definite inconsistency in how that game was called.
There was definitely inconsistency, and that's something that we have been seeing in the WNBA for especially these last 2 years, that refs haven't been consistent. I do think that Stephanie White kind of like did too much in the post game presser, and at the end,
I'm not even mad at the sentiment, but like, child, you were giving Vanessa 9-yard vibes, and that's
it was a
not
little
in a good
much.
way.
It was like she was doing the most, and of course Caitlin Clark also said her piece, but like it was clear that tip was not a foul. It was so clean, and it's basketball. If you lose, like, just take it and go to the next. Like, you lost to the champion and you attempted a comeback, but the truth is that they did open a big lead, and when a team opens a big lead, like, they have that on their favor, that if the other team's going to do a comeback, they can take their foot off they can slow down and wait until things get better for them. So there is no reason for all of that. We know why, and we know that there's going to be another narrative of everything against her, which honestly, it is so tiring. I am so tired of that narrative, but I do feel like people are starting to pick up on that, and I do feel like people are being a little more critical, and a little more that people are like, oh, whoa, slow down. You also make fouls. You make hard fouls. Like, just here's the thing. I love me some spicy in the WNBA. I'm here for it, but own up to it. I mean, it's all grown women. It's all adults. Like, if you're going to be spicy, own up to it, and don't rely on other people to hold you or to take the responsibility for you. That's my hot take on that.
Oh man, and like, here's the thing: Caitlin Clark, hothead on the court, and I don't have an issue with that. I'm a hothead. I've said this before, and so game recognized game, right? Or crazy recognized crazy. I don't know. But, intensity. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, there were things she was complaining about. Seemingly, I could not hear her, so I will say that I'm not reporting on what she said, but some of the mannerisms, who she was and wasn't talking to, made it seem like there were also times where she was complaining about her teammates to her other teammates and or her coaches. I don't know. That was strange. And those are things that she's going to have to fix. You're the point guard. You have to get it together. I'm not mad she feels that way, but go talk to them directly. Don't have someone else do your bidding.
Exactly. That's
the thing. Like, go up, because you know who's gonna say it? Skylar Diggins.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's the thing that has been like, dude, if you're gonna do something, own up to it. If you're gonna bark at someone, just be, hey, I am the one barking. With one thing that also caught my attention is that the Fever needed a defensive stop in that play by Sabrina Ionescu. Stephanie White took Caitlin Clark out. And like, if you're talking about the best player on the team and you can't rely on them for such an important defensive stop at the end of the game, then like, either work on that or rethink about where your best whatever comes from.
That's an interesting point. I will also say, I'm pretty sure she was in foul trouble by then. She might have already had 5 fouls, 4 or 5. She had about 4 or 5 fouls. So in fairness, because you do want her on offense to be able to be available, right, on offense. So just putting that out there. And I think your broader point outside of that specific moment in the game is valid. I wanted to come to something that Tulip said here, or a question. Will she not get fined? I haven't seen anything saying that Stephanie White has been fined. I wouldn't be surprised if she is fined. Also, I'll just put this out there. It's a holiday weekend in the US of A. I mean, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I guess we'll find out, because we definitely have seen coaches get fined. I don't know where the line is, but it seemed pretty clear that she was talking about officials there. So I wanted to come to something Striatic asked regarding the Aces. Is this a good comeback team, or do they need to keep it close? Felt like once Seattle got ahead early, the Aces started rushing things on offense and it threw off their execution. This Aces squad for this year doesn't seem to be a great comeback team. They had an opportunity to close the gap in that game against New York in what was the season opener for them on the road, home opener for the New York Liberty, and they couldn't do it. And that was another routing. Like, they got beat pretty bad. I will say historically, oh my goodness. And you even heard it on the Seattle broadcast. They were like, you cannot let this Aces team hang around because they will do damage. Historically, that just hasn't seemed to be the case this year. Okay, I want to move on to a few other topics. Tahina Pow took a pow to the face, unfortunately, and was out for Atlanta, even though they still got the win over Connecticut. But that's something I want to watch for. I've been so impressed how Tahina Pow has entered that starting lineup. Jordan Canada being reevaluated in the next few weeks. So it doesn't seem, or at least it has potential to not be a long-term injury for Jordan Canada. But this is an interesting, perhaps, and a good problem for Atlanta to have. If and when Tahina Pow and Jordan Canada are healthy, what is that going to look like? Because I personally have liked what I've seen from Pow.
I really like what I have seen from Pow and the Dream. To be fair, it's a team that I wasn't really giving too much of a credit, but after seeing some of what they have played early on in the league, I think it's a team that can go very far. I did bet more on the Sky earlier, but now I'm like, nope. I think the Sky is going to be the last team in this league.
They're not looking great, and
they are looking bad. They are looking bad.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah. Ugh.
Like I watch almost all of their games because of Camila,
right?
And it seems like they don't know what they're doing. But going back to the Atlanta Dream, I think that they have what it takes.
They felt it was so important to fire a Hall of Fame former WNBA coach, but what do I know? Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, I like what I see from the Atlanta Dream. I feel like Brittany Griner is integrating really well to what they already had. I can't wait for Alicia Gray to come back and continue adding to that team. I do think that they're going to go very far.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Some people saying, and I want to get to this quickly, but this is interesting. I think the Liberty should have kept that pick and drafted Pow. In my opinion, I could see Tahina Pow on the New York Liberty. But are you saying that you don't want Natasha Cloud on this team?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because all due respect, Tahina Pow can be perhaps a Natasha Cloud, but what Natasha Cloud is giving, Natasha Cloud won the game against the Aces. Natasha Cloud won you the game against Indiana.
Exactly. Natasha Cloud has been doing the way that she fit the New York team, a team that already had everything they needed for a repeat. I feel like there's no beating the Liberty with her now, with what she has been doing. And I do think it comes down to something that we have talked a lot in this podcast, which is experienced point guards. That's what Natasha, that defense on Caitlin Clark, we would not have seen that from a young guard.
Exactly. And if you are the defending champion, you have no need to get a young guard that's going to be your starting point guard. There's no need to do that. You can have your pick of the litter. There's no need to do that.
Exactly. All you have to do is either manage what you already have or bring some very key strategic pieces. So that's what they did with Natasha Cloud. They brought an additional experienced guard who can take on the court with who can step on the court with Sabrina and lead that part for and she's a great defensive player, which we already knew, but there was a really good example this weekend.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did want to get to something else because I'd be remiss. We might not get a chance to talk about it again. There was some reporting or someone an opinion on social media that I saw regarding Camila and Angel, and that Chicago is not a place right now where they are getting good personal and player development. And part of the argument was going off of what we just said about Natasha Cloud, that there's not really a true veteran in the post that's there with them. Now, Elizabeth Williams still with Chicago, right? And Elizabeth Williams is a fantastic person to learn from. But I, if I had to guess, the person's argument is they're not working in real time, on the court in game flow action with another veteran because they're working together. Now, I think that's an interesting argument. I think it's especially interesting because, again, this is an organization that decided to fire Teresa Weatherspoon even after she had a better record than they did the previous year, and they were in the playoff hunt. Now, they didn't get over the hump, but the way Chicago's playing right now, I don't know that they get over the hump either way. But what we do know is that Angel Reese respected Spoon, Kennedy Carter. I mean, we can go down the list of people, and so I just wanted to get your thoughts on, do you think there is anything to the fact that Camila and Angel are maybe going to see a little bit of their growth lapse with the absence of a veteran that they can work with in real time?
I think it all boils down to the Chicago Sky mentality. They haven't really been a good team to develop players. Who did they win championships with? They won with Candace Parker, with veteran leadership, and they have two brilliant. They're not rookies now; they are second years, but they are players who need development, and you're not really seeing that. You do see Angel Reese trying to shoot from the outside, but I think that's not. I don't think the Sky is working on the best interest of Camila and Angel. They want to play from the outside. They want to shoot. When you have two bigs who can be an advantage for you.
Yes.
And I don't know what is the issue. I don't know why Jeff Pagliuca and Tyler Marsh are being so resistant to playing inside, to going with to putting the ball in Camila's and Andrew Reese's hand, because when he does that, it works. And I know that there was that horrible clip of Andrew Reese meeting and getting her rebound, missing and getting her rebound. Andrew Reese is good. Like, people can't. Andrew Reese is not a bad player. She misses a lot, but so many players misses a lot. However, she gets her rebound and she goes back to it. So I don't think that the Sky is developing them well. We saw Camila playing well in China. We saw her growing, and I don't think that the Sky is really working on their best interest, unfortunately.
And this is where, I think it goes to the opposite end of the spectrum where I am with Seattle. And so I want to go there now. We're going to talk about Dominique Malunga, because everyone who listens to our show regularly, thank you so much for listening to Tempestagi Talk, keeping a local eye on your Seattle Storm. Thank you for listening regularly. I have said, I don't know how you don't start your number 2. And so let's apply that, right? Your number 2 pick. I don't know. Let's apply that to Chicago, because Camila was the 3rd pick and Angel was
7th.
I was going to say 7. I was like 6 or 7. Okay. So definitely for Camila, has to start as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why you pick someone number 3 and then you don't give them minutes. You have to, right? I mean, and then you pick Angel Reese at 7, but Angel Reese, someone was making an argument, she's a player that would come off of the bench on any other team. Any other team? I don't know about any.
No.
Maybe some, but any? I don't know about that. She's coming off the bench if she's on New York.
Yeah.
But that's why, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, the point that I want to get to is with Dominique Malunga, I still think that we saw a little bit of improvement. And this is what I said earlier. We saw Liz Kitley gets 6 quick points for Vegas at a time where that team is struggling, at a time where probably by then the game, Vegas was okay to work on things and not necessarily go for the win. I think they got to a point right before the fourth quarter where it was like, we're not going to quit, and this is an opportunity. And so we saw Kitley get some minutes. That's what I want for Malunga. I do think today's game was a step in the right direction, and I think we could have gotten there sooner. You have to be able to give players like Malunga minutes, and not just when you're losing by a lot, not just when you're winning by a lot. You have to get them an opportunity to give your team an energy boost, a different look. And for me, that had been missing up until the last 2 games, Roberta. So let's talk about what we saw from Malunga in Phoenix, and especially today. What did you like? What do you think is still a growth opportunity?
Yeah, and going back to the previous game against Phoenix and the pregame press conference with head coach Noelle Quinn, she said that she was giving Dominique some time to acclimate since she got to training camp a little later, and she's young, so we are seeing that. And she said that she was going to put her in depending on the matchup. And that's exactly what we saw today. I think that we saw exactly what Noelle Quinn was saying when we saw Kitley going off and putting in, I have the notes here, but I think she scored 8 straight points for the Aces. Noelle Quinn immediately put Malunga in. What I like, the main thing that I noticed and what I like the most about Malunga is that she is fearless. Yeah. That girl has no fear at all. She drives to the basket. She towers Asia Wilson and other players. I did see that on the defensive end, like she's jumping too much, like she jumps too early. But that's what we're saying about there is an adaptation period, from Eurobasket to WNBA basketball. So she is going there, but she did put some good defensive and offense minutes. She's fast. She moves fast. She moves smoothly. She shot from a distance. It was a 3. At first, it was a 3, but I think they downgraded to 2.
Her foot was on the line.
Yeah, she was doing the work in the paint, and she has shown that she's worth the minutes because she is making mistakes, but that's what you expect from a rookie. Mm-hmm. She's making mistakes, but she's going at it. And it was so funny when she had this, I know because it was right by the media row. I think it was against Kitley that Kitley was able to walk around her and score, and Malunga was a little frustrated with herself. And someone behind me was like, "That's okay. You can do that again. That's all right. Just keep trying." One of the fans, and it was just so cute because I do think that that's why rookies are rookies. That's why you get the learning period. So she got some more minutes today. She got 11 minutes, 4 of 7. So 8 points, 5 rebounds in 11 minutes. That's really good. And that's very promising. And if you end up having more of that, you're going to have a player who is she's going to keep going. She's going to go to the basket and she's going to score.
Yeah. Ooh, Tulip. This is really interesting. Adkins trade ruined the sky. Probably leave for the off season, gave up Citron. Yeah, we should talk more about that. We're not going to do it on today's episode, but let's keep a pin in that because some of these redrafts or off season moves, once we get closer to All-Star, it will be very interesting to talk about. I love what you said about Malunga. I agree 100%. I still would like to, for me, the sweet spot is maybe 6 to 8 minutes, but on average, because what you're talking about on defense, you don't learn that exclusively in practice. She has to learn how to do that in practice, sure. If she's a part of that second unit or third unit, really. Third, fourth unit, I don't know. But, she's going to have time to guard Nneka. She's going to have, have time to guard Gabby. That's good. And that's not who she has to guard when she's playing for the Seattle Storm. You know,
Yeah,
you have to be able to
exactly.
learn different ways of attacking. And to your point, you know, Kitley is still learning the game as well. Kitley has great footwork. I mean, we knew this, right, from the NCAA.
Yeah.
But I love that she looks healthy. She looks confident. She got her work done early and often. And I love that. And I want Malunga to do the same thing. I wasn't explicitly looking at Kitley defensively. I didn't notice anything, but if I were to really look, would we also see, oh, there was a hesitation or something, you know, probably. So I think this was a step in the right direction. We're going to move on though here, because we're going to talk about Malunga. The only other thing I want to say is that Nneka said about Malunga that she just loves to have fun. And so I think that Nneka saying that the way that the team also is approaching her development is to make sure that that's also a part of the game. We saw Gabby Williams maybe try to hit her with an alley-oop and, you know, stuff like that. So I love that as well, to bring some levity. So that'll be something that I'm looking forward to. Before we get into previewing a little bit this game against Minnesota on Tuesday, got to go back to the Skylar Diggins, and I wanted to make sure you were on when we talked about this. Skylar Diggins gave a really interesting interview with Vanity Fair. First thing she said, and this is something that I've alluded to, but now Skylar Diggins going on the record saying that she is among the players that really is advocating for more. She said her quote was moms, but I'm going to extend that to parents. Because I don't think that Skylar is only trying to protect mothers or people who identify as mothers. You know, I think we can make that assumption safely. But she wants more benefits for moms. She talked about the CBA. She talked about how she is known, Roberta, as a gremlin. These are the words that she used in the article. A gremlin, which is a very specific thing. Like, ooh, very cute, very fuzzy, and then you pour water on it, and it's like, you know. So I thought that was really interesting, hilarious, and probably pretty accurate. But she also says that she gets the antagonist label. Now, being and owning the gremlin label, which I think she did, but then using the term antagonist label, I found really interesting, because throughout the interview, when you read it, there's and we've always I always talk about this. You and I talk about this. Skylar Diggins will be the first one to tell you that she knows who she is, aka Gremlin, right? And she also is very keenly aware about the label, the antagonist label that is slapped on her.
Yeah.
And she broke some things down about what she was really going through in Phoenix. Oh, remember that, you know, there will be a game, but it will not be an all-star game. Remember that whole quote from Vanessa Nygaard? You know who was?
Oh my God,
you know
what was
who
Vanessa
her
Nygaard
all-star?
doing?
You know who was her all-star that year? Skylar Diggins. She spent all that time talking about, and I don't even think the question was specific to Diana Taurasi. I could be wrong, but as memory serves, it wasn't even specific about Diana Taurasi. And she went out of her way to say that it's not an all-star game because DT wasn't an all-star. And let's just go back. DT wasn't having an all-star year that year. I think she was coming off of an injury. She's coming off of one of her back surgeries, if I remember correctly. She just wasn't playing at an all-star level at the all-star break, period. She wasn't.
No.
Skylar was, and that coach didn't have nothing to say about that. And so Skylar talks a little bit about what it was like in Phoenix, how she needed to take a leave of absence. She was having health complications with one of her pregnancies, and that she wasn't able to park at the facilities. Coaches weren't made available to her after a certain period of time. There was already a trade in the works even before she disclosed, which is such a weird thing, disclosing a pregnancy, you know? So that was pretty heavy. You know, she also talked about Dallas and things there. Dallas did comment. Phoenix, unsurprisingly, did not offer a comment. But what were some of the things that you took away from that Vanity Fair interview, or just, you know, overall how Skylar and this antagonist label versus her self-identifying as a gremlin plays a role still in how she's perceived in Seattle?
I think that one thing that I really admire about Skylar Diggins is her self-awareness. And there is a quote from Game of Thrones by Tyrion Lannister that says, you know, when like wear know who you are and wear it as your defense, because then no one can use it against you. And I feel like that's what Skylar Diggins does with her gremlin way of being, with her antagonist.
Right.
So she embraces it and uses it for positive things. I think that it's very common for, you know, women, especially Black women, who are comfortable with requesting what's owed to them,
Skirt.
to be labeled as aggressive, as antagonists. Because when when someone says that you're an antagonist, you assume that they're saying that you're against what is what you have, right?
Well, an antagonist is also used, like if you use it in thinking of fiction in particular or in writing, the antagonist is the antithesis to the protagonist. The
Oh,
protagonist
okay.
is the hero, is usually the
Yeah.
hero or the main character, right? And there's to create the drama, right, of the story arc, there's usually an antagonist or someone
Okay.
who
All
is
right.
like their nemesis or a villain or someone who is the opposite counter and is in conflict with the protagonist. So
All right. So that's, guys, is language barrier. You find it here at Tempestagi Talk.
no, that's
So
okay.
yeah, I think that she has that self-aware and she uses it on her favor, and she uses it to bring that energy on the court. She has been through so much in this league, and she has been
Yes.
very hardly judged, and she has taken care of herself and her family first. She was not she was having a really bad mental health moment, so she asked for some time away, and it it worked against her, because people say, no, we take care of our play. It's like, at a workplace, people first, blah blah blah, and then people put themselves first,
And
and
it's like, how
they
could you do
and
this
there's
to me?
retaliation.
Don't even
Yeah,
get me
so
started. Like I have a whole one day I will ring the full alarm, and some of it's already out there.
yeah,
But like I have a very
yeah.
specific, because I've had that happen to me without children, like these are people who have whole children that they have birthed
Hmm.
and are now responsible for, and the lack of concern, which again goes to why Skylar is prioritizing that so much in the
Yeah.
CBA with any voice that she has. And there's something that you said, which I forgot is another label that's in the article, where she labels herself like an overcomer, right? Someone
Oh,
who's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
overcome a lot of things. Exactly. Postpartum
Hmm.
depression, handling that has been very difficult. And
Yeah.
she was not the first, but one of the first women to be a mother in the league
Yeah.
and to navigate and work through that, and
Hmm.
having frank conversations that now that I do have a child, yes, there are certain things that are needs for me to be at my optimal performance,
Hmm.
and those haven't always been worked in. So I
Yeah.
do love this quote. I'm going to put it up. This is the energy that Skylar is bringing to the Storm this year. And it goes off of what I asked her and Nneka, I think. She says, the
Hmm.
main thing for me is to come in and be a pro, get my work done, not be a pain in the ass, but that doesn't mean I'm an easy teammate. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And I think that's where and this is my assumption. I haven't asked any of them about this specifically, but it's counter to what we read from Juwel Lloyd, who I
Hmm.
think had an expectation that there was going to be, or there should be, a little bit more equality on how people are treated. And that is a good thing, but it's not that you treat everyone the same, it's that you treat them with equity. And that's different.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you and I if we're treated the exact same, it's going to yield different results because we're two different people with two different backgrounds and we think differently. We agree on things and we disagree on things, and how we respond when we agree or disagree, it could be similar or it could be different. Those are all, that like those are things that you have to be able to refine and tweak as you learn about people, but also as you realize what is their optimal way of communicating. And for me, that's at least part of the story in reading those two articles. I mentioned the Cali article. I will post the Vanity Fair article as well, but really read those. Like if you're someone who's having conflict on how to make sense or who to quote unquote side with, just read those articles. And maybe you do want to side with someone, but I also think it's okay not to. These are two players that seemingly are in a place where they can be more effective than they were last year. And that's okay too. Sometimes things don't work out, and it doesn't always have to be a big blow up. Sometimes you do have a big blow up and then you get over it. Sometimes you have a big blow up and you never get over it, especially if you're a tourist like me and I have receipts. And one day I will call out, because sometimes you gotta let people. What does Mel Robbins say? She's like, oh, if someone wants to talk about you, let them. If someone wants to do this, let them. And I'm like, you know what, Mel, that's so great. And my healed, higher vibrating self is totally there. But sometimes you have to let them know, because if you don't let people know, they're going to keep treating you, and in my opinion, worse, other people like trash. And I'm not okay with that.
People are going to steamroll over you if you don't stand up for yourself. And I feel like Skylar has always been really good at standing up for yourself. Even though we are in a women's basketball league that stands for, everything, women are still retaliated against for standing up for themselves by teams, by fans. So all those labels, what was the first thing that people did when stuff started to come out about Juwel Lloyd? They pinned it on Skylar Diggins. Everywhere she goes, there's a thing. Oh, she's this, she's that. That was the first thing that people did. And I am a firm believer that time is a fair judge and the best judge for everything. And with time going, like with this short passage of time, we see a Seattle Storm that is very disciplined, a team that has improved in the shooting. We see Nneka Ogwumike that's probably she's in her 13th season and playing some of the best basketball that we have seen.
She's looking great.
And you got a Skylar Diggins Smith. She almost had another double-double with 10 points and 8 rebounds. I feel like she was a quiet player on the court today, but she still had 10 points and 8 rebounds with a plus minus of 17. So when you look at that, you see a team that is working, and even though the aces are changing, they are still the aces. They still have Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Kia Stokes, and now they have Juwel Lloyd. So it is a team that is a measure for success when you play against them.
Of course, yeah.
I would never expect the Storm to beat them by that much. I could expect the Storm to beat the Aces, but this final score, I did not see that coming. And I think that's more of an indicative of the Storm than the Aces. I ask myself that. I asked myself, okay, is this final score that's more indicative of how the Storm is doing or how the Aces are doing it? And I think it's more about the Storm than the Aces.
I think it's definitely more about the Storm than the Aces. I do think how the Aces performed, we have to at least acknowledge it, which we have. That leads me, though, to think about they took on a Phoenix team. Gabby, I talked about it earlier. I don't remember if you had hopped on yet, but Gabby was like, I don't want to talk about the first game, but I'll talk to you about this game, because she was saying that this game, the second game against Phoenix where they won, was much more true to their identity.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, 3-game winning streak now for the Seattle Storm team, and right on time, because they're going up against a Minnesota Lynx team that's 4-0. They're going up against the Minnesota Lynx team where they went 1-3 against the Lynx last season. So only one win in 4 games against the Lynx in 2024 season. In the regular season, they did not play each other in the postseason. So what are we expecting? What version of the Seattle Storm will we get? Have we seen enough? Right? And I think they have more games right now than not that they're playing closer to how they want to play. But is that enough when you have a Minnesota team that's playing as well as they are right now?
Yeah, again, we have talked about how Minnesota carried on the momentum from the final last season. But I do feel like the Storm is in I want to say, a higher upwards trajectory than the Lynx. Comparing the last game of the Lynx and the Storm, I would say that the Storm is in a better place when it comes to maintaining, when it comes going head to head. If the energy from today stays, and I asked that in the press conference, they shot 68% in the first half, 60% at the end, and that there was an 11-2 run in the first quarter that allowed the Storm to open the first big lead. And in that run, there was the lineup was Erica Wheeler, Skylar Diggins, Gabby, Nneka, and I always forget, and Ezzy. I asked Noe if she thought that lineup was a key factor for that for the team being efficient, and she said that the lineup allows Skylar to play off the ball, not only on the offense but also on the defense. And by getting stops on the defense, they can go on fast break. Because you see here, the Storm was 24-10 against the Aces on fast break points, and that has a lot to do with the defense. We saw a lot of defensive stops that were key. So yeah, Moni, I agree with you. At this point, Mini doesn't look infallible. And this Storm, if they keep this energy from today, they can beat the Minnesota Lynx, and that's going to change the whole story of the season.
Yeah. I mean, also, Minnesota, can they put it all together? And knowing that they're still without Kayla McBride, who is away for personal reasons, so we're going to leave it at that until we know more. The team is giving her that time, a la what we talked about with Sky. So we respect Minnesota for that. So they're still figuring things out. But just something to note. So what was it, Roberta? 32 assists, right? Tonight, third highest in franchise history.
32 assists, yeah.
So most assists in a game this season. There have been 2 teams that have hit 27, but it's happened prior to tonight or today. Prior to today, there were 4 times that a team hit 27 assists in one game. And then another time where a team hit 25. Those 2 teams, the Minnesota Lynx 3 times, 27 assists. The New York Liberty hit 27 assists in one game, and then they had another game where they hit 25. So these are the 2 teams that played in the finals last year that, again, are moving the ball very effectively. So I hear what you're saying. You know, the trajectory or the momentum going into this game might be in favor of Seattle. And does that matter? How much does that matter if Minnesota is not kind of also leveling up? But if Minnesota does kind of level up even a little bit, are they maybe a little more equal? But so knowing that the Storm are coming into this game against Minnesota with the 3rd most assists that they've had in franchise history in what was this, game 5, game 6, game 5, right?
Yeah, game 5.
Yeah, that's huge. And you want to take that, but they have to own that. It can't be a fluke. It can't be something that, oh, well, this just happened because the Aces had an off night, to your point, and to the point that we've both been making. They have to own it. And I think we heard Nneka talk about that, because we heard Noelle Quinn talk before the game about rebounding and knowing that that was a point of emphasis, right, in the game going into Vegas. And then what did Nneka talk about after the game? Rebounding, and how that helped fuel what we saw on the defensive end. They were taking pride in that. So if I'm the coaching staff and I'm looking just at some of these stats, because there's other stats we could look at. I'm telling my team, lean into the pride of, we facilitated the basketball on the offensive side, and we need to do that against Minnesota, because we know that that's what they're going to do. But if we do that to the level that we did at home against Vegas, we can play that game with Minnesota. And then we stick with the principle of defense first. We stick with the principle of not getting out rebounded. And then boom, there you go. That's what I would be saying if I'm in the locker room.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it is a team that has a mentality that they are going to keep using the defense as a catalyst for their offense. And they are going to keep running with that in order to get over a team that is the Minnesota Lynx. So they have to keep that going. They have to maintain that energy.
I agree. Now, Storm guard depth. This is a Minnesota squad that has depth. Clearly, we're talking about a team that has not seen Kayla McBride, right, yet. So there is depth there, and that is where the matchup can become a problem. But what have we said, Roberta? The way to counter that is for the Seattle Storm to make the paint a problem, to make the interior play. You have Nneka, who's playing brilliantly. Gabby Williams can help you stretch the floor, but can also mix it up in the paint. You have, of course, Ezzy. You can maybe see if you can get Malunga to stay in that paint and really be disciplined, have her focus. And if she gets 6 minutes a game against the Minnesota squad, have her establish a presence in the paint, if only to then open up the rest of the floor for everyone else, because that's where you have to go toe-to-toe with Minnesota, because they, in theory, on paper, right, can beat you in the backcourt game. But all that to say, Erica Wheeler putting people on notice.
Exactly.
She looked quick. She looked confident. She was facilitating well. She looked like she had her team, the trust of her team. She looked good. She looked good.
She did look good, and I love that for her. I think that it was a rough year for her with Indiana. There was a lot more going on than the inside, than on the court. People were very unfair to her, and I am happy for her. I have a soft spot for Erica Wheeler because I have been covering her since before she was in the WNBA. She played for Brazil, so I've been covering her ever since before she was in the WNBA, and I've seen how good she is. She did so good for the other teams that she was in, and to see her having a 21-point game with 7 assists and being the propeller for the Storm, basically, it was huge for her, and I'm very happy.
So the Seattle Storm, they have a big test coming up, Roberta, in the Minnesota Lynx. I like this early barometer, though, for this squad. You know, if you look at just, you know, who else they have coming in, it's of course going to be the Minnesota Lynx. But then they're also taking on Atlanta. Now, Atlanta has had some pretty strong games.
They have.
Tahina Paopao. I like what we're getting from Tahina Paopao. So I think that could be an interesting game for them. And then they take on Vegas again. And what we know about Vegas is that they don't like to get got multiple times in a row if they can help it. I don't know if they can help it. Again, I got to listen to what Becky Hammond said. So best believe for the next game, which I think is on June 1st, right? June 1st. So in a week, basically, we'll be able to talk about that because I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. Exactly, Moni. The schedule does not get easy. We don't know for sure if K-Mac will be playing, but we saw in the comments from Moni, I hadn't seen that she was practicing with the team, but that's good that K-Mac is back. Commissioner's Cup. It is a Commissioner's Cup game, that's for sure. That's some more hardware on the line, and of course, money as well. But we are so grateful that you joined us on this live.
Of course, I'm so happy.
Yeah. Straight from Climate Pledge Arena. We know it's been a long afternoon for you going into the evening, but Roberta, let folks know where they can find you on the interwebs, and if there's anything that you either have already put out or something that you're working on that you want to share.
I am on, let's see if I get this right. I got this right the first try now. Here's my my X account. I wish I I want to attempt to get out of there because of all of the reasons. But I will be covering the Minnesota game, and I am planning on being on all of the next Seattle Storm games. Erica knows I've been going through some life transitions that had kind of like caused some like track backs here on my WNBA coverage this season, but we're starting to get back on track, y'all. I want to put up some more multimedia content. Got myself like a cool new camera that I try to use as webcam. So stay tuned, and there's a lot of cool Seattle Storm and overall league content coming.
Excellent. Well, Tulip, thank you for spending some of your early morning time with us. We appreciate you hopping on. And tomorrow I will be on with Brian Florentin for Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. I will be in Vegas, so I'll be on Pacific time. But we were gonna talk about the New York Liberty. Had a great game, of course, against Indiana, down to the wire. We're gonna break that down. And then for me, I mentioned this, but at the end of this month, I get to see Kelsey Plum return to Vegas. And so I was saying we got to rank who had the better comeback game, or, welcome home game, so to speak. Kelsey Plum or Juwel Lloyd. I think the bar is a little lower than I expected for the Lloyd comeback. So we'll see what Plum Dog can do, because she had another fantastic game for the Sparks.
Yeah. Oh my God. Let's see what the second Juwel Lloyd comeback looks like next week.
Yeah. Tulip says, also, don't forget I did say Lexi Brown is the concept of a plan of a shooter, and she's proving it. Listen.
Anyways.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know what to go about into that. Yeah. Tomorrow will be Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. That will be 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on the Black Rosie Media YouTube channel. But we will let y'all know. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. And you can set the notification bell. I highly recommend that. So for today, we had scheduled this stream a little bit later, and then we realized the game was buzzing, so we moved that up a little. But if you are not only subscribed, but you also get the notifications, then you'll know when we go live. So make sure you do that. But for Roberta Rodrigues, my name is Erica L. Ayala, and you have been listening to Tempestagi Talk, where we keep a local eye on the Seattle Storm, part of Black Rosie Media. Tulip, take a little cat nap, and we'll be there tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. All right. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Tempestagi Talk. If you want to know when that next episode is, make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter, the Women's Basketball Roundup, and we will let you know when we are streaming next. The Women's Basketball Roundup goes out every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you, Striatic. Thank you, Tulip, Aloysius. We had so many people pop in. Of course, Moni was coming through. Donovan, Daniel was here earlier. I'm sure I'm missing some people. Let me see. Kamal popped through. So many great people. Thank you. Some new people as well. Either way, we will catch you on the next stream. Peace out, everybody.
Bye, everyone.